I knew very early on in my life that I wanted to do something in music, even though I wasn't a musician. When I was about 14, I already had a huge record collection, and I would always listen to records not from a sort of fan point of view, but sort of like how they do that and what's going on here. And I remember studying records and playing them over and over and over again. And when a new record would come out, I'd literally get on my bicycle the morning it came out and ride to the town I lived in, pick it up, take it home, and just bury myself in it for a while. So I knew pretty early on, maybe when I was 13 or 14, that I wanted to do something in it. And just kept listening that way. And when I went to college for a year and I decided I didn't want to be in college, and I moved out to California to try to get a job doing that. And that didn't really work out, but somehow it worked out when I came back to New York and my career started. Well, I didn't really know much about the music scene in New York professionally. I just knew it through being a kid that grew up in Long Island and would come in on the weekends to go to the Fillmore to see bands. Like the first concert I ever went to was the Chambers Brothers, the Doors, and the Byrds, all in one show. Cost me like $5, and I was hooked from that point on. That was when I was about, I think I was about 16, 17. And the scene today is so different. I mean, first of all, it's become a business. And it's like phase 6 of the business at this point, because it's a real bottom line business now. When I was young and starting, it was like being in high school. Working in a studio was like being in high school. Your buddies were there. It was much more casual. It was a hang. We never thought about striking it rich or, you know, doing anything but making cool records. But New York has always been like a great place to work. I don't think of it as a great place to live, but the energy is so high here, and the expectations of excellence is or was so high here. Well, when I first started at Electric Lady, I got a job as an assistant. I basically had to audition. I had never done it before, and they threw me in after about a week or two. They threw me in with Eddie Kramer, who was the chief engineer there, and a really demanding guy. Very watchful ear and eye, you know, and he punished me. He trained me sort of like you train a dog, you know. He was great, and he still is great, but he was super demanding. And the thing was, like, if you could get through and survive Eddie, you can be in the business, you know. First thing I ever worked on, I think, was either Kiss Alive, I think it was Kiss Alive 2. He was mixing and fixing the recordings for Kiss Alive 2. So that was like the first record I ever worked on, you know. And we were making tape loops of audiences to bring in audience sounds at the end, and he was showing me all his tricks. It was awesome, you know. We actually did some overdubbing. Nobody's supposed to know. And I assisted him for I think about a year, and then I went on to Power Station after that. So I got really lucky, man, you know. Like, before I really got in the business, I made a list of the people that like a dream list of people I wanted to work with. And on that list, if I can remember, was Bruce Springsteen, The Police, ZZ Top, Dire Straits. And I got to work with some form of all of those guys. So a huge amount of luck involved. Being in the right place at the right time, being at Power Station, which became a destination for all these bands, you know. And it was just so, like, serendipity how it worked. Like, I would work with somebody, and somebody either from that band or from that production, like Mark Knopfler heard a record, actually a jazz record I worked on with a guy named Mike Manieri, and fell in love with the sound of that record and hired me to do Dire Straits based on that. So it was this totally lateral thing. The first album I ever recorded as the chief engineer was The River with Bruce Springsteen, and I thought everybody worked like that. And you know, it's been shocking over the years to find out that not everybody works as hard, is as committed to excellence, pounds it as hard as they do until it's right. All those things that really separate the greats from the near greats, you know. Mark Knopfler told me a quote from Chet Atkins many years ago. He said Chet once told him, Chet, you know, produced Elvis Presley and a host of amazing records. And he said, you know, when an artist I'm working with makes a mistake, I leave it in, and after a while it starts to sound pretty good. And I think that's a genius philosophy, and it's something that is non-existent in the music business today. People, you know, crush mistakes as soon as they happen. But I do remember the first time I worked with Paul McCartney, and I wanted to tell him he was out of key, and I remember looking at my hand when it went to the talkback button, and it was shaking as I was about to tell. That was quite a moment, but he was totally cool. You know, these guys are pros. They want your guidance. You know, it's something you slowly realize as a producer, like you're really there to help and just step in when you need it. You know, I produce from an engineer's point of view. That is, I'm always building the sound of the record from the very first minute I start, and the sound of the record is determining the production. Like I always talk about balancing the energy of the record as opposed to balancing the sound of the record. And the fact that Superior allows you to change the drum sounds throughout the whole process of the record, it's actually kind of wigging me out a little bit, because I like to always explore options, and I know when I use it I'm going to be thinking more of, yeah, maybe I'll change this at the last minute and just see how it all comes together. But it's been really rare that I've actually succeeded in getting where I think I want to go before I start. I mean, like Money for Nothing with Dire Straits, which is one of the hallmark things that I'm known for, that was like an accident. The sound of that, the guitar and the sound of that record, I know Mark was going for kind of a ZZ Top thing, but we didn't know how to get there, and we didn't know if we were going to get there, and it just kind of happened on its own. So you got to go with the flow. You know, you can't put a stop to it if it's not really coming out the way you think it should. As long as it's still good, you got to go with it. You know. Well, I sometimes speak at schools in the city to kids who are in these production engineering classes, and I always tell them, learn as many techniques as you can. You know, learn Pro Tools, learn Logic, learn Toontrack's software, write if you can, be a programmer. You know, the engineering, the pure engineering thing, when I started, like if you were a decent engineer, you can make the jump into producing pretty easily. Those days are over, you know? It's rare that a guy can get a job as an assistant in a studio, make the jump to engineer, make the jump from engineer to producer. My era was kind of the last era where that happened. So guys today have to be much more skilled than I was at my time in life, and they have to know a lot more, and the more they know about all the stuff, whether it's Logic or Digital Performer, you know, digital consoles, how to mix in the box, which I still don't know how to do, all the stuff, plugins, hardware too, if they can write, if they can program, if they got a good bedside manner, that's still important, you know. The psychological aspect of making records is still super important. So, yeah, just get all that technical stuff so you can take it for granted, you know. I think that's key. Just because you're a good engineer and someone digs you personally is not enough anymore, you know. It was when I started. That's how I made my career, basically, you know. Yeah.